Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Wellness Weekend. My name is Kathy Reñeses. I work as the in-house life coach with Centro Holistico, and joining me this morning is the lovely Rene Rose Rodriguez. Good morning, Rene.
Hi, thank you for having me, Kathy.
It's so nice to have you. I cannot say how excited I am for this episode. For anybody who has like grown up just thriving in their garden or loving plants or just, would go home to the province and would like explore and see, all the different plants that were available. Or for people who grew up, with what we call like botika ni lola, or like your grandmother's pharmacy, where like whenever you would get sick or feel ill, she always had an herb
Right.
for something.
Yeah.
Like what I love about this episode, it's just such more of like a remembrance of.
Oh, nostalgic.
Yeah, no, well, yes, nostalgic, but at the same time, it's also a remembrance of like we have just been so used to, oh, I have a headache, I'm gonna grab a paracetamol, etc. But just a good reminder of there are actually herbs in nature that we can use that don't have any chemicals and side effects. That can actually help heal us. Like everything really is in nature. So to kind of get us started, Renee, I'm super curious about like your story. How did you get started in all of this?
Well, for me, it's always been kind of ingrained in my life, just as you explained for you and for a lot of others. You go to your province home and your grandmother's there whipping up herbs. So for me, it was kind of the same. My mom, she raised my sister and I in the States, in New Jersey area, and we lived in this really nice suburban place where we had our own garden in the back.
Yeah.
And my mom is from the province. She's actually from Tarlac, so she's had no idea. Like she always used to tell me she was so afraid of like the big sizes of like the vegetables and the fruit. Like she was just like these produce or the vegetables, they don't look normal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Extra large there, yeah.
yeah, so she started growing a lot of our produce in our backyard. So we grew like tomatoes, we had blueberries, strawberries. We grew all types of vegetables within our backyard. She also taught us how to compost, so we didn't have a lot of waste. And she also was really big on herbal remedies. So it was usually like if we were sick, it was a tea that she would make, or it was a soup that had herbs boiled into it, which is very Chinese, or TCM, as you might know. And so it really stemmed from my mother. She always believed, to be healthy is to be as natural as possible. And yeah, like growing up, if we had fevers and stuff, she wouldn't give us like medicine. So she would just like figure it out and like try to just. So it's kind of something I also do with my children. A lot of people get a little bit shocked when they hear like if my kids are running a 38, 39, 40-degree fever. None of my kids have ever had a lick of paracetamol or any kind of conventional drug or allopathic medicine that you find in the pharmacy. They've all been, there's no problem with that at all, but as long as it's manageable with herbs and natural treatments, then that's what I use.
And I love that because like you're keeping your kids' immunity as strong as possible.
Yeah.
With remedies, instead of like, not a lot of people know, like when you take paracetamol, that actually just wipes out your entire gut flora, and it takes a while to kind of like replenish that. So you kind of, it kind of asks you if it's doing more harm than good, if that is like your automatic go-to every time like you feel a fever or you have a headache coming on. So I love that your journey started in the Garden State. And like there is such a plethora. Like people think of Jersey and they kind of think of like the Hoboken side and
Yeah.
like the industrial looking parts, but then like
Yeah.
there is a part of Jersey that is unbelievably green, and
Yeah.
they are called the Garden State for nothing.
Mhm.
What were your kind of like favorite herbs growing up that you kind of like to incorporate into your day to day?
Growing up, it was mostly peppermint and the mint family that my mom would use. She loved to use peppermint. Peppermint actually grew like wild in our backyard anyways. It was like untamable, really.
Yeah.
So peppermint was really good for indigestion, and my mom would give it to us muddled. She would muddle it a bit in a like a little bowl, and then she would put it under hot water just to kind of release that flavor, and she would give it to myself and my sister. I do the same for my kids because one of my children actually has some gut issues. Sometimes her gut is not really up to she is susceptible to having lots of gut problems. So she really thrives on having a little bit of peppermint with chamomile after a meal. So we do that for her, yeah. So it helps to like kind of coat her digestive system and get it moving and get it working. So that was probably one of the bigger ones. And my mom used many, but I think that was like her real basics. So growing up, my mom actually used mostly culinary herbs, which are what we know as peppermint, thyme, rosemary, kind of just the things that we grow in our little gardens at home. So that though they're all great though, rosemary is really good for balancing your hormones, especially people with hypothyroidism. If they just boil a sprig of rosemary with some fresh ginger every day, 3 times a day, that can I actually had a client who I got her thyroid to the swelling to subside within a week with just that. So it's the culinary herbs are great as well, but there are a lot of herbs that are really medicinal and used medicinally, and it does take a little bit of training, or if it's been passed down to you through knowledge, is also a source of information for a lot of herbalists. But for me, it was really studying more medicinal herbs and expounding my knowledge from what my mom kind of already gave me. Yeah.
I love it. So basically, your gateway herb was peppermint.
Yeah. Basically.
So when did you kind of realize or kind of tell yourself that, you know what, there is something here with what my mom's been teaching me. I really want to expand my knowledge about Western herbology and kind of see what's out there.
So that's actually a really interesting story, and I tell the story to a lot of people, especially if they're suffering from something like a woman, hormonal issues. So I have endometriosis, and after I had my first son, during the pregnancy of my first son, we found that I had a cyst, right? A cyst caused by my endometriosis. So it was kind of just there. It was kind of small, so we just left it. My OB at the time, she said, it's probably just going to dissolve after the pregnancy. And so after the pregnancy, we just thought, I never went back. I was just like, okay, it probably dissolved. And then I suffered with infertility for about 2 years. And I was just like, what is going on? I'm healthy. Actually, my first degree in wellness was a nutritional degree that I got in the States, like 7 years back. So at that time, I was already a healthy person. I thought I wasn't using herbs, but I was just like, what's going on, right? And so I went for an ultrasound again, and they found that the cyst never left, and it was the size of a grapefruit. It was like this big.
Oh, wow!
Like an American grapefruit. It was like huge. And so I had a surgery to remove it. I had a lab surgery to remove that cyst. And during the surgery, the doctor, she actually tested both of my fallopian tubes with dye to see if they were open still. Because of endometriosis, because the uterus latches on to other parts, it can really mess with like your other reproductive organs, right? So apparently one of my fallopian tubes was shut completely, which made my chances of getting pregnant even worse than they were
Yeah.
already. So when I woke up, I remember I was crying because I just felt so terrible. And you know that there's nothing that you can do. I asked her and I begged her. I was like, can you just give me another surgery to like open up the fallopian tube? Anything, I'll do anything, right? And then she said, really, there's nothing that we can do in allopathic medicine. There's no surgeries. There's nothing that you can take to open this. If it's closed, it's closed. So I remember looking at her and I was like, okay, then I'm just gonna have to do it naturally. And I'm a very stubborn woman. So like I will try. I'm one of those people who will try and try and try until I cannot get the result I want anymore. So that was in April. And for 4 weeks straight, I remember doing all herbal remedies for balancing my hormones. And then I did other things on top of that, like obviously a healthy diet. I supplemented with a few things, and I exercised, and I did castor oil packs. And I remember I came back in May, a month later, and I was pregnant. And the doctor had ordered an ultrasound, and they found that the egg came from the fallopian tube, my right fallopian tube, which was the one that was shut. So I had reopened my fallopian tubes naturally. Yeah. So it was just like, so after that, yeah, when I was pregnant with my daughter, my second child, that's when I started my journey into going to school for herbs. So I've been studying herbs for about 3 years now. So that's just, that's just part of how I got into herbs.
Yeah, because I think with a lot of us, like 21st century people, right? We kind of there is this kind of idea that, like herbs, like it's such an old school concept. It's such an old school idea. Like we're way past that now. But like in reality, there really is a kind of coming back to all things natural, and people are realizing that, like chemical medicine isn't always the best route for a lot of us. And sometimes what we just need is it's basically like in our gardens, if we only knew kind of like how to use it. And what I love with your story is that that's the route that you went through, and with your experience, it's really kind of the proof in the pudding that there is something there that we should be really taking a harder look at. Like there are so many like herbal supplement companies that promise, like, oh, we have kind of packaged all the oils and the roots and etc., and put this into this one little pill, and then they charge an arm and a leg for it. When essentially it can be something as simple as just like boiling whatever that herb is and getting the most of the nutrients that way. So I love that you are basically kind of reintroducing the benefits of herbs and the benefits of like really studying them and passing it on. So it was your mom that kind of started it for you, and now it's you, and now you're kind of passing that on to your kids.
Yeah.
We have a question from Conrad, and he asks, where did you study herbology?
So I actually attended 2 schools. So one of them is the Herbal Academy in Vermont. It's in the U.S. And it's a really good school. They actually offer small certifications, but I have a master herbalist degree from them. But they have like a lot of smaller kind of courses. Like one really interesting one is skincare with herbs. It's just, so if you wanted to do something very light, I really do recommend people going and taking a short course because it really helps with the knowledge. But after that, I actually am part of the Association of Naturopathic Practitioners in the UK. So I am considered a general practitioner as an herbalist. I went to the College of Naturopathic Medicine in the UK, and that is a full degree for Master Herbology.
So I hope that answers your question, Conrad.
Yeah, I hope
Um, and
so.
and your focus really is Western herbs. Why did you pick that as opposed to like the more Asian, the
Right.
traditional Chinese medicine kind of route?
Don't get me wrong, I really love TCM. I love Ayurveda. It's so interesting to me, and if I could study it all, I would. The thing was that I felt like there's so many TCM and Ayurvedic venues and places where you can go here to get information. There's doctors, and there's a lot of them here. And I just saw that there was kind of a void where, because I remember growing up in the States, and because half of my family is Irish and Italian, they use herbs that I had never seen in TCM or had never seen in Ayurveda. So I was so interested in really like finding out where these herbs come from. Although they do grow worldwide, it's really used, they're used differently in different parts of the world. So I was just really drawn to Western herbalism because it's kind of a part of my roots also. So and I wanted to fill that void. I wanted to be that person who could bring herbs from the Western world into Asia or into the Philippines and make it more accessible for people because we have amazing, and like a lot of the herbs that we work with are actually like Asian, but we have amazing herbs in Asia, but we also have amazing herbs that grow in colder climates up in the North Americas and in the Europe area. So I wanted to kind of, why don't we just have all of it?
For sure. And like I think there like a lot of if you look at like a lot of the herbal supplements that you see on shelves, a lot of them are actually Western herbs, right? Like dandelion root, buckthorn. And like at least for me, like those are the ones that I am like generally just really not familiar with. And it and I find it interesting, like that's what's available. So a lot of us just kind of take it and just don't think
Hope it works.
right. But then it would be a lot better to kind of figure out, okay, so like what does buckthorn actually do aside from like what they say, like on the label at the grocery store, etc. So in terms of like of Western herbs, can you kind of like give us a couple of your favorites and how you like to use them?
Yeah, so I actually have one here, but I think I forgot to bring it in. Well, okay, so one of my favorite is actually stinging nettle. So stinging nettle actually is an herb that is considered a nutritive herb, and it's an antioxidant. So when we say a nutritive herb, it just means that it has a lot of nutrients. Stinging nettle is really interesting because, like I said, even though, for example, ginseng is considered an Asian herb, there is something called American ginseng. It grows all around the world. It's just, it was more used in Chinese culture before it came to the Western world. So same with stinging nettle. Stinging nettle actually was foraged. One of the first, I think, times it was foraged was in North America during the pilgrims, I guess, coming to the U.S., and they brought it back with them to Europe. And stinging nettle so if you pull the leaves off and you boil it, it's actually a really interesting herb because when you boil it, it actually is soup-like in consistency. So it's thick. It's like literally almost a soup, and that's because it has so many nutrients and so many minerals. It's not like an herb you would pick like peppermint and it would become a tea after you boil it, like a clear liquidy type of light drink. No, this is like a full herb, and that's why it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites because it helps with allergies, arthritis, and rheumatoid arthritis, which I think you might be familiar with, since I know at Central Holistico they do have lots of patients who come in for acupuncture. It's an anti-inflammatory, and a nice thing about stinging nettle is actually has antihistamine properties. So when my daughter was she was having a mild allergic reaction, I luckily had stinging nettle available, and we gave her straight stinging nettle. Like I think I gave her a water bottle, and it was like this size. I gave her like 4 of those in the day, and within the 24 hours, she was completely fine. So it subsided right away. So it helps to decrease pain also. So it's if you have arthritis and your joints can be very painful, it's an anti-inflammatory, so it can help with pain. It also has surprisingly 4 times the vitamin C of an orange. So it's really good for the immune system. It helps to boost the immune system, support it. I also recommend it to my new mommies who are lactating because it increases lactation. And it has actually protein, iron, and magnesium, which are all things that we kind of, people are kind of, especially those who are trying to go to a more plant-based lifestyle. They're like, where can I get all my protein? You can get it from vegetables, but it's surprising to know you can also get them from herbs.
Yeah.
So stinging nettle has protein. And another interesting fact.
I find that so ironic because, for stinging nettle being an antihistamine, but like, saying like you don't want to fall into like a stinging nettle bush because then you're going to get a reaction out of that. So, for you just simply boiling it, and you can absorb the antihistamine properties as opposed to maybe like into it and getting an allergic reaction out of it. It's mind blowing for me.
Yeah, and another interesting thing, like why I mentioned that herbs grow all around the world, is that even though this is considered a Western herb, it actually grows locally in the Philippines. And I went on a search. One of my missions is to kind of find Western herbs that are growing locally in the Philippines and kind of finding their names so that we can, as Filipinos, become more versed in Western herbs that are growing here. So it has a local name, and it's called alingatong. And I found it through a lot of research. I was sourcing it. I couldn't find it. I was like, do you guys have stinging nettle? Do you guys have stinging nettle? And they're like, no, we don't. And then I showed a supplier a photograph of the root and the leaves, the aerial parts of the plant. And he's like, ay, miss, alingatong yan. So then I did some more research, and I found out that is stinging nettle locally.
That is so interesting. But like, is it kind of like an Asian version, or is it like the actual stinging nettles that you would get like in the UK and the US?
It's a variant, but it's more climatized to this weather, this climate, this soil, but still the same family of herbs, so still has really good amounts of vitamin C. It's kind of like malunggay in the way that it increases lactation, and but if you were looking to just like get stinging nettle off the shelf, like you don't want to go forage in the forest, Mary Roots offers a tincture like this of stinging nettle, which I keep on my bedside, and you can also buy it at Healthy Options in a tea form. Yeah.
But of course, like at least for me, like foraging is the way to go. Like that's the fun bit. What does it taste like? Because like you did say, like it has a kind of like that kind of like okra after you boil it texture, where it's like very thick and soupy. Like I'm surprised your daughter was happily ingested like 4 bottles of the stuff. So like, does it have a taste or?
So yeah, actually my kids I start giving my children herbal teas, very light ones, when they're 6 months, just in intervals, so that they can they can get more familiar with the taste of herbs. I know like a lot of herbs are classified also according to their taste, right? So we have bitters, and then we have sweeter herbs, and then we just have really pungent herbs that should not be taken right out of just eaten in the mouth. Stinging nettle is kind of, for me, a balance between a little bit of a bitter and a it actually surprisingly does not have a pungent taste at all. The
Mm,
reason my daughter could take this herb is because I mix it with a little bit of manuka honey, because
got it.
she's like 2.5 already, so honey's okay, honey's safe for her. So manuka honey has a lot of really good properties, so I mix it a little bit in there, and not too much, but that's how she was able to take it. I know, but
I love
um,
that. No, I love that she's curious as well, and that she's just so open, because usually kids at that age, like, the automatic whenever you try to feed them anything is like, just no,
yeah,
but
right, yeah.
right. But with her, it's like 4 bottles. Okay, I'm good. Just,
Yeah,
keep
because I
going.
actually try to instill in them that medicine to them. If you ask my son is 6. He just turned 6 the other day, and he says like, if I'm giving him like a tincture of something or a tea,
Mm,
he's sick, he'll say, "Mommy, is this my medicine?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is your medicine." So to them, they don't associate medicine with something coming in a bottle out of the pharmacy, or like an injection or some. They don't associate medicine as that. They associate herbs that we have in our garden that we plant. I have herbal books in the house, botanical books, and
mm,
he flips through them, and that's what they associate with as medicine. And it's kind of it's also a little bit of my advocacy to start at home, teaching our children that food is medicine, right?
yeah.
So when you're
Mhm.
cooking food, like in our house, we like to have congee or lugao a lot, because it's easy to
Mm,
digest and it's really good for my daughter. She loves it. We put tons of ginger in
yeah.
it, and um, I always tell them, I always try to make sure that they relate food to being nourishing, not just to
Mm,
satisfy taste, right?
yes.
To nourish the body. I always kind of give them a little bit of a lecture, like what ginger gives to them, what it does to their cells, and they really like to listen to little stories. My
Yeah.
son, he really wants to be a herbal medicine doctor when he gets older.
Oh my God, I love that. No, it's amazing, because like, even at Central, I love what you're saying, that basically food is nourish, food is medicine.
Right.
One of our doctors, Doc Sasa, likes to say that, food is information.
Right.
And I really think that a lot of like what's happening to us generally in terms of chronic diseases is because we treat food as entertainment.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's really something to entertain us, and not to nourish us anymore. And then
Right.
that discontinued lifestyle is kind of what's putting us in a lot of trouble a couple of years down the line. So I love how you're introducing this to your kids as a form of, oh, like, this is medicine. This is something that can be explored. The medicine just grows right outside in the garden. um,
Yeah.
and I think also, like, for kids, like, being able to sniff, smell, feel, what they're putting into their bodies, and identifying that as healing, just sets them up for just to win in general, in terms of, if I get sick, like, I know that I can just go out into the garden and like get a sprig of peppermint and just chew
Yeah.
on that, or like boil some rosemary and add a little bit of ginger, and I know that that's going to make me feel better. So just basically kind of educating them at such a young age that like, there are things out in nature that can help us. It's just up to you to really figure out what that is, and how to make the most of it. That is fantastic, Renee. I love that. Oh my gosh, I'm learning so much from you.
I'm glad.
What about turmeric? Because turmeric is like that has been such a huge thing now, with people talking, with COVID, people trying to increase their immune system. After, oh, sorry, my dog.
So with turmeric, actually, turmeric can be. A lot of people stigmatize, I think, herbology or herbs or natural supplements or even naturopathic ways or modalities of treatment, because people feel like it's trendy, right? Like, oh, acupuncture is trendy, or herbal medicine, turmeric, for example, is so trendy, but it's actually not, because acupuncture has been used for thousands of years to cure ailments, and turmeric the same. Turmeric has been around, been used all over the world. It was one of our first ways humans would self-medicate with turmeric, and it's a really, really good anti-inflammatory. It helps with the digestive problems and indigestion, diarrhea, inflammatory bowel disease, because it helps to it helps to kind of bring down any inflammation in the gut system. So also Crohn's, if you are familiar with that, and it may help obviously in preventing cardiovascular disease. But one really interesting about turmeric is that not a lot of people know two things about it. One is that it's an antioxidant, so it provides a lot of support for your cells, and it helps protect your DNA from free radicals, and just the, I don't know how to say it properly, but if your cells go on to become mutative or become rogue, so it helps to protect your cells, bring them back, and just give them some support. But number two, it actually helps with liver problems. So if you are having trouble, I think actually Dr. Arcani and I spoke about this on my live. But it's one of the things I also tell my clients that, and because my husband also has liver problems, he's actually in the first stage of what we think might be liver disease. So it helps to kind of start and promote and stimulate the digestive system, the detoxification part of the liver. And it's really good all around herb. It's very tolerable. You can put it in your cooking, you could take it as a tea, and you can even take it as a tincture. I have it here. So this is from Mary Roots, and turmeric is a really good herb, really all around for inflammation. So yeah, and it also helps with rheumatoid arthritis and any kind of joint pain. So if you're someone who is suffering from arthritis or joint pain, like I said, a lot of these herbs will do the same things, but turmeric is really good for digestive, liver, and antioxidants.
Does turmeric and ginger, like, do they kind of like work together? Is one necessarily like better than the other? Because I think like a lot of people kind of get those two mixed up.
Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying. So when you're studying herbology or herbalism, you learn that there are a few ways to give herbs or provide herbs for your clients. So one way is called simpling, and simpling is actually prescribing one herb for all of their ailments. But this comes with this is a master herbalist. It's a really hard thing to do, actually, to prescribe one herb for everything. What we like to do as herbalists is prescribe a bunch of herbs together because they work in synergy with each other. So a lot of herbs, although there are contraindications, and there are some types of herbs you cannot use together, there are herbs that work really well together, and turmeric and ginger are one of them. So both are anti-inflammatory. And the nice thing about ginger, I would recommend using it in cooking all the time. Like I said, we have lugao, and when we cook tinola, we put tons. Like my helpers, my cook, she's just like, more ginger. I'm like, all of it, just put all of it in there. And it's really good also as an anti-inflammatory. It's good for seasonal changes like we have now. It's like raining, then it's hot. It helps with any sinus blockages, or any kind of just like head, I don't want to say head problems, but anything like cognitively. So if you're having trouble focusing, ginger is really good to help you. A really good ginger congee or ginger lugao, or ginger tea in the morning right before you go to work really sets the tone for you to be able to focus. So having said that, I like to use all types of herbs kind of together, and not just turmeric and ginger, but a lot of other herbs that I use all throughout the day at different times for different things.
I love that. And like just going back to the turmeric, because I know we have a lot of that, and people really have been, been incorporating it into their teas, their curries, etc. How would you kind of recommend people kind of like take it if they have the raw ingredient? Because it is readily available here, but it is kind of waxy and it does like
Right.
it cleans your hands. So
Okay.
is there a way that like you could recommend like how people, you know, could use it or kind of prepare it in order to make the most of the herb?
Yeah, so one of the things I always get, a lot of my clients, they refuse to take turmeric. They're like, I'll take the ginger, but not the turmeric because I have like these
Yeah.
porcelain white teeth
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna stain my teeth. They just don't want to deal with it, right? So a lot of people will prefer to take it in a tincture form if they are afraid of staining, right? But obviously, if you could get it raw and if you could get it fresh, all the better, right? So how we would prepare it in my house, actually my husband is a chef. So he prepares it in cooking a lot. So I know he'll saute it, he'll like chop it up, saute it with maybe chicken and I mean some other things that we're eating, some vegetables. But there is also one type of way that you can prepare turmeric, and it's to chop it up, chop the root up, and you could put it in with your rice. And I feel like this is so underrated, like cooking roots or herbs with rice as they cook in the rice cooker. And by doing that, you're actually releasing, it's being cooked a bit, but it's like releasing all its benefits. And you have like a turmeric rice, probably the easiest way to do it. Other than that, really, I would say chop up the root, get a good handful, stick it in a tea diffuser, stick it in a cup, like a glass thing, and pour hot water on it, let it cover it. Most important thing is to always cover your tea as it's steeping because there's volatile oils that will escape. And yeah, let it sit. And well, you can mix some honey in it if you like it to be a little bit sweetened. Let it sit, and then once it's cooled down to room temp, throw it in the refrigerator, and have it throughout the week as an anti-inflammatory iced tea. I mean,
That
probably the
sounds like
easiest.
such a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then it can stay in the fridge for like a week, and it
Probably a
should still
week.
be.
Yeah, a week is okay. Yeah.
That's so interesting. And then like what other herbs would you kind of recommend that you said that kind of like go together that we could incorporate throughout the day?
Well, if I'm going to speak, one of my favorite herbs is ashwagandha. So it's an Ayurvedic herb, which we also use in Western medicine. So a lot of people know, let me see, people know ashwagandha as what kind of herb? I'm trying to take off my herbalist hat. I don't know what other people view ashwagandha as, but it's really interesting to know that actually ashwagandha is considered a nutritive herb. So it has a lot of nutrients, and in India and in old Western medicine, and even today, but we don't see it as often, it was prescribed to children if they were suffering with failure to thrive. So yeah, so if you're not, so with a lot of children, you know, back in the days, some children just had, and there are some now, but they just fail to thrive. They're not gaining weight as they should, and it's really because they're not probably digesting their food properly. Their body's not grabbing all the nutrients it can grab from its food, the food that they're ingesting. And ashwagandha helps. It's a tonic. It's also considered a tonic and an adaptogenic herb. It helps to tone the body in all sorts of ways. So with digestion, it helps the digestive tract and the digestive system to help, pull more nutrients out of the food that the children or you or adults are consuming. Because at the end of the day, they say food is wealth, but even if you're eating the best type of food, if you're not digesting or assimilating those nutrients and vitamins properly, then you really are going to fail to thrive. And so that's one of the herbs that I really love. I take it every day though. because I actually use it to support my adrenals and for libido. So
Really?
it's really,
So interesting. That's so interesting. I thought ashwagandha was more like a calming sort of
yeah. So
grounding.
So the really interesting thing about adaptogenic herbs is that adaptogenic means basically that if you are someone who cannot get to sleep, if you have insomnia, ashwagandha or an adaptogenic herb would help you get to sleep. But if you are also someone who has trouble waking up and lacks energy, an adaptogenic herb would also help you have better energy in the morning, because it's considered, actually, adaptogenic herbs are a new type of classification for herbs, and they're considered to have a totalizing effect on the body. So, for example, I have a really good example. One of my clients, she had trouble going to sleep. She could not get to sleep. And then when she woke up, she's like, could not get out of bed because she felt like she had no energy. Even if she would sleep like 8 hours, 10 hours, she's just like, what's going on, right? I prescribed her one thing and one thing only, and that was ashwagandha in a tincture form, at a little bit of a medicinal dose. So she was taking a little bit of a high dose. But I remember the first day, the first 24-hour cycle, and right after that first 24-hour cycle, she messaged me and she was like, I went to bed at 8 p.m. and I woke up at 5 a.m. with so much energy. And I was like, that's because it helps to bring balance to the body. So if ever you hear of an adaptogenic herb, just think about it bringing balance to the body. So yeah, I love ashwagandha, and it's safe for children, as I said. You just have to speak to a practitioner or an herbalist to make sure you get the proper dose for a child. But it's really good for children who maybe are having digestive problems, as I said, failure to thrive, or if they need a little bit more energy or they have trouble sleeping. Those are the reasons why we would probably give it to children. But it's a very great herb. I love ashwagandha.
It is. I just realized I've been using it wrong.
Oh, really? Why?
I've been like I've been using it to kind of like get, I guess, like put me to sleep, or just to kind of, that's what I've kind of been taught. You can use ashwagandha, it'll calm you, it'll ground you, so take it before you go to bed, etc. I think I should be taking it in the morning.
Yeah, so actually, if an herbalist prescribes ashwagandha to you, they'll tell you never to take it too close to bedtime, because sometimes it can have a reverse effect where it'll give you energy right before you're about to go to sleep. So
Got it.
when I prescribe it, I tell people to take ashwagandha probably morning, anywhere between 9 a.m. to 12. Yeah. And then if
Okay.
you're already kind of used to taking ashwagandha, as I assume you are, and you
Mhm.
need a little bit deeper sleep or have trouble sleeping, take it around right before dinner.
Got it. And that will,
Yeah.
okay. See, like this is why we need to talk to you. Like we just keep like, like we'll go to healthy options, or we'll go to the grocery store, and then we'll look at this plethora
Right.
of herbs and just kind of base it off of whatever the description is at the
Right.
grocery. So if they say like, oh, this is like calming and for sleep,
Right.
we're just gonna, okay, like we will just trust like that's what it's for. When
Right.
it
I know. Yeah.
has so many other uses, like you just explained.
Yeah. And when I started studying, because when I cured myself of my endometriosis issues, I was like,
Mhm.
that was all Google, that was all just like researching. It was like not just Google, obviously, but it was like reading studies and reading books. And then I was like, maybe I can just do this as I'm doing it now. And then I realized when I took one of my first herbology courses that it's so much more than that. And if you Google herbs, you'll actually get a lot of misinformation, because it's information that's being posted by a blogger or
Yeah.
someone who's like into wellness and tried it for themselves. But there's a lot of contraindications with herbs. Herbs are drugs, essentially. And so you need to study pharmacology. You need to know how they interact with different people and their bodies. And the dosing is really so important, because I do notice that if you go into healthy options and you get turmeric tea, or you get any type of tea off the shelf, that it's actually not in the right amount of dosage for you to actually even have any benefits or effects from it. It really needs to be a little bit stronger. And then actually last night I was using a tea from Healthy Options with kava in it. Kava is also an herb, and I had like a high.
Oh my god.
Because I like to double steep my tea, and that was my fault for not reading the box, but they actually had a really high dose of kava in it. I was just like pleasantly surprised that they were generous enough with the kava, but I was like, whoa, I was kind of like spacing out. So I think it's really important that people go to see a specialist. I know there's a lot of TCM doctors who are very knowledgeable on herbs, and a lot of Ayurveda doctors also. And I really, sometimes I'm in Healthy Options. I'm always in Healthy Options, but I'll see people like scanning the tea shelf, and sometimes I want to make small talk, and I want to ask them, hey, do you need to look for anything? I can help you. So it's as simple as really just going to ask someone for information, because otherwise you might be underdosing, sayang naman you're spending for this herb, or you might be incorrectly dosing yourself for something. And a lot of the times people are also not preparing their tea properly, and so they're not getting the benefits of their tea either.
Yeah, exactly. And like some people, like for me, I'm super guilty. I just want a cuppa. So like like I'd go to Healthy Options and I'd hang out there in the tea section going, I wonder like what am I feeling? What do I feel and I need? But in reality, all I really want is just a unique kind of cup of tea, which at the end of the day may not necessarily serve me. I have fallen victim to a lot of sleep teas that I would take in the middle of the day, and I'd be like, what is happening to me? No, but yeah, definitely. Like it would really help to have somebody to talk to with regard to, like trying to figure out what herbs and what combination of herbs and how to take them would actually benefit us. Like you've been talking a lot about tinctures, which are just really concentrated concentrated herbs. Would you recommend tinctures over, let's say, like the supplement pills, or would you rather we take them in teas? Is there a right way to go about it?
Well, I'm definitely not one of those people who would recommend normally to have an herb in a supplement form, only because sayang in a way. I think a lot of us know it's like kind of already general information that we don't really get 100% of what we're swallowing, because it's like killed by the digestive tract. There are some herbs that once they get into the digestive tract, they really work well there. But I do highly recommend tinctures. I'm actually going to be posting how to make tinctures at home on my YouTube channel soon. So I hope that, I mean, I know you can buy it at Mary Roots and you can buy it at a lot of other places, but to be able to make it at home in a big jar, you could just have it there for months, to keep at home. And so tincture form, definitely, because your digestive system doesn't have to work overtime to get the nutrients out of it. It's actually ingested right there in our saliva. There's enzymes in our saliva that help to break it down already. And I do like teas, because I feel like if you know how to prepare tea correctly, if you get a really good dosage of tea, and it's really beneficial, not just health-wise or physically, but also mentally, preparing your cup of tea and having that tea ritual, that moment to just kind of, I'm doing this for my health. So I really do recommend teas, and I do find a lot of people who are like, I don't have time to make tea, la la la. Once they start doing it, they can't like live without making their cup of tea in the morning, because it just helps them to it's like a meditation in its
Exactly.
own, yeah, its
It's
own
kind of
sense.
like
Yeah.
it's kind of like your little like mindfulness practice, right? Of
Right.
putting
And then
yourself.
another way I would probably recommend, the last way, is really trying to experiment and cook your herbs in your food. So one of the rules in my house is there has to be at least one or two herbs with every meal in the food. So that could be something as simple as ginger,
Mm.
or it could be rosemary, thyme, basil. Those are all really good herbs too.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rene. I'm learning so much. But we are at the top of the hour, and I
I
will have to
know.
go soon. So before we do let you go, can you, if you could recommend, let's say like 3 herbs that we should all have close by in our garden, growing in a pot somewhere, etc. What would those 3 be?
So I always recommend three. If I have to recommend 3 herbs for people to start growing in their house, I do always recommend peppermint, number one. These are
Mhm.
all easy herbs to grow. So that's also why I'm recommending them, because I don't want you to go home and have a plant that just dies. So
Yeah.
peppermint is really a strong herb. It's easy to use. Once it grows, you do a little bit of picking, you muddle it a bit, and you pour hot water over it, and now you have a really good indigestion tea, the digestive tea for after meals, and after meal tea. It's just perfect, and children can have it in a more diluted dose, or more just a little bit more water compared to the leaves, and it makes like a beautiful ritual for your family. Also, it smells lovely too. Another herb that I recommend is rosemary, and I recommend rosemary because rosemary is really good for balancing hormones. And everybody, male or female, are walking around today with some type of hormonal imbalancement. And I know this because I personally suffer from it, regardless of the fact that I'm like extra, I try to be extra healthy. And I have clients on end with hormonal issues. My helpers have hormonal issues that I help to address for them. And I just feel like it's really important because, like you said, we're eating food that's not really supporting our system. And so, of course, there's something going to be out of whack. Rosemary is a beautiful herb. It helps to kind of bring balance to our hormones, and it's so easy to prepare, so easy to grow. So you take a sprig of rosemary, probably about 6 inches,
Mhm.
and you don't really even need to muddle it. But if you muddle it a bit, like just hit it a bit with a little stick or something, break it down a bit, throw it in a cup, pour hot water over it, let it sit, and always remember to cover your cup, and have this tea, say, in the afternoon. It's also a really good pick me up. I do give rosemary, and I'm trying to look here because I have it here. I do give rosemary to my son right before he starts his
Mhm.
homeschool, because it helps with cognitive function. So if you are
Yes.
someone working from home, if you have children going to school at home, make
Mm.
sure they have like a cup of rosemary tea right before they start. You can even add the ginger in there, like I said earlier, and you have a really good focus tea. This tea will help you really sit down, focus, and do what you got to do. So probably the last one, let me think. I want to choose a really good one. Well, we have tons of herbs growing in my garden, and let me recommend one that might seem very not for taking it by mouth or ingesting
Mhm.
it. I would kind of I do have this fetish with lavender, and
Mm.
even though you can use it as a tea, I love having lavender in all the bedrooms and the bathrooms. So I have little pots of lavender around everywhere. And if you so you can't really smell it if you're just like sitting by it. But we have one right on my bedside table. If you just like rub it a little bit, you don't even need to buy the expensive essential oils. You can just rub
Yeah,
it a bit, and you like go like this, and you breathe it in, and it's just so relaxing. And
exactly.
you can smell it throughout the room, and it's so affordable, it's so beautiful. And so probably lavender, just to have it as a plant around the house. It's really good for mental wellness, mental cognitive function as well. So
Mm.
those are probably my 3 herbs. I could recommend a crap ton of herbs, but those probably are the 3.
Yeah, no, I love like lavender. Yeah, like I would just like run my hand through it and like that smell would just stay in like the room for, at least a
Right.
couple of minutes. Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah.
I find it a little finicky to take care of, though. I guess it's probably like the Metro Manila weather, the heat, and then the
Yeah.
rain, and then the humidity doesn't do.
Right, right.
I
Mhm.
have a love-hate relationship with lavender. I love having them around, but they don't stay for as long as I want them to.
Right.
And then yeah, with mint is fantastic. Like they grow like weeds in the garden. Like
Right.
the like gardeners would say, like you want to grow it in a pot. So you put it in a pot and then you can stick it in the ground just so the roots don't get too unruly, because they will
Right.
try to, like they will try to take over the garden if you let them.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. So like it depends.
Depends on how much mint you want to use,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Joycey says yes, everything was so helpful. So yeah, we are at the
Aw.
top of the hour. Thank you so much, Renee, for this really insightful talk into into healing herbs. It's really it's just really been eye-opening, like, even for somebody like me, who I feel like I do love to incorporate a lot of herbs into my day-to-day. There's so many practical tips that you shared. Something as
Oh,
simple
good.
as just like covering your tea,
Mhm.
to let just enable to keep everything in.
Yeah.
It makes sense, and I'm like, why haven't I been doing that? I just leave my
Yeah.
tea on the table and then that's it. So and the whole thing about ashwagandha as well, about how it's not just this one thing. It's
Right.
more complex than that.
Right.
That was such a big aha moment for me.
Oh, I'm
Um,
glad.
yeah, so thank you so much for joining us this Sunday, and thank you for everybody that tuned in. Catch us again next Sunday, when we have a different topic, different guest, still talking about wellness, and well-being, and how we can really help and serve you while everybody is sheltering indoors. Renee, for anybody that wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
I'm just on Instagram, and people can message me there. I'm always posting about herbs and any herbal information. So you can just kind of follow me and send me a DM. That's fine.
So what's your Instagram handle,
It's
so we can give
it's
you a follow?
at it's at it's Rene Rose. So ITSRENEROSE.
Perfect. And then you also have some other interesting Instagram accounts that you handle on there as well that they can follow, right?
Right. Yeah. My skincare brand, which I make botanical skincare. And then I have a home wellness kind of coaching brand. And then the other thing is my all natural nail salon in Mandaluyong, which I've had for almost 7 years now. So we do everything is all natural, everything is non toxic and safe for moms, kids. Yeah.
I love that. I'm definitely giving you a follow, guys. I highly recommend you do the same. And yeah, that is it for our wellness weekend. I hope that you guys have a lovely Sunday, regardless of the weather. Keep safe and keep dry. Bye, guys.
Bye.